Our session objectives are to define the key concepts, appreciate the strengths and difficulties of forming teams, and then to learn the basics of promoting teamwork within an organization. So we start with the basics. What's a team? So a team is any group of people who are organized to work together interdependently in order to achieve more, in order to meet either the needs of their clients or customers or whoever it is that they want to serve. And somebody cleverly put it that a team means together everyone accomplishes more, because we all work together to achieve what we set out to achieve. And then team building refers to a process of establishing and developing a greater sense of collaboration and trust between team members. The important words there are collaboration and trust. It's difficult to work with people you don't trust. It's difficult to work with people you do not collaborate with. So for team building to be successful, it must have the elements of trust. So why do we need teams? Why do we need teams? They say two heads are better than one. Everyone specializes in a certain area. There are people who are talented at talking, people who are talented at writing, people who are talented at doing different things either with their hands or they have different abilities. But if you bring those different abilities together, the organization or a team works better. One, we say, once people work as teams, they are able to satisfy a social need to belong. Everyone wants a sense of belonging. If I may ask, why do people who are working, why do they work? Any volunteer with an answer? Why are you working? Or why are you struggling to work at some point? Yes. To earn a living. Why do you want to earn a living? You can as well sit there and someone looks after you. Yes, why do you want to earn a living? Yes? To? So that what? Why don't you just die? Why do you want to survive? So when we get to the basics, we shall discover that whatever we do is there to solve a problem. It's because of problems that we do what we do. There's always a need to solve a problem. Once you solve one problem, another one comes. Just like someone who started by earning 200,000. With 200,000, he's able to solve his problems at that level. When his salary increases to 500,000, he discovers his problems have now increased. When he gets 700, now his problems are worth 1.5. When he gets 1.5, he will need 5 million. Because the problems don't end. They just keep on increasing. And you remove the crust or whatever, the mist from your eyes and you start seeing things differently. If you are looking for a plot of 2 million, this time you'll want something of at least 50 million. Because if you are living in a shack, this time you'll want a mansion. After a mansion, you'll want something else. Because our needs keep increasing, just like our sense of belonging. Most of the time you spend at your workplace. 40 hours a week you're at the workplace. Some of you, it's 50 hours. Because that's where you belong. You want to identify with an institution. You want to identify with a certain group. You want to identify. The human being has that strong sense of belonging. Then they say it also promotes better communication and multiplies the potential of individual members, produces positive peer pressure. Unfortunately, there are people who, I've worked in quite a number of places, but I have come to realize that there are people who wake up early in the morning, dress up nicely, and they go to their places of work to fight, to cause trouble. At the end of the day, when you ask, what have you contributed to realizing the organization's mission or vision. Actually, they were frustrating the organization's mission. They were frustrating the purpose of being there. Why were you hired? You were hired to solve a problem, not to create them. And to tell you, thinking is very difficult. Thinking process is very difficult. It's very easy to work with what other people have thought out. Now, because of that, we sometimes forget why we are where we are. Instead of contributing towards solving problems, we always become part of the problem. Many of us, Ugandans, are talented at identifying the problem, and that's where it ends. They always say the problem is. The problem is, you know, the problem. You don't hear someone saying the solution is. Because solutions require thinking. They need some concentration. But identifying the problem, anyone, even a baby, can identify the problem. But getting the solution is always the problem. Is also a challenge. So when we work as teams, we're able to think together. We're able to have that energy that can help us solve problems. So the purpose of a team is to, one, to help plan, solve problems, and make decisions. Making a decision is also a talent, I should tell you. If you're a person who doesn't like responsibility, then don't ask for leadership. Because when you're in a position of leadership, you're in a position that requires making decisions. And decisions must be made whether good or bad. The worst thing is not making a decision at all. If you make a decision, that's the beginning point. It can always be referred to. It can always be changed at some point. But the important thing is make a decision. And when you make a decision as a team, it helps solve problems. It helps implement the plans that you have. So what are the task activities of teams? Initiating. Do we have any Lumumbis here? What are the cultures here? Do you have any culture specific to your institutions or to where you come from? When we were still students, there used to be a culture of initiating new members into the group. Either you say Makere Oye, well, I don't know, are those things still there? Or you say we want war, peace, war, because you are building morale to one cause problems. Yeah, so most teams, most organizations have a certain culture. Among these people who drink, if you're in a Malwa group, do you just join in a Malwa group? There's a way you're introduced, they tell you about this, they tell you about that, and then they tell you about membership and how often they meet. There's a book, they want to know who, and there's a certain cohesion. That is part of initiation, to feel you're a member of that group. Then, of course, there's information sharing, summarizing. You elaborate what the issues are within the team, and then everybody has to give an opinion. I don't know how often you sit in meetings, but if you've ever sat in a meeting where there's an agenda and there are issues that are being raised and they are looking for ideas, some people keep quiet. Others repeat what Jane had said, like what Jane had said earlier on. I want to re-emphasize. After he has emphasized, everyone is quiet again. Then the chairperson starts asking, yes, team, what do you have to say? Gladys, you are quiet today. What are you saying about this? Have you participated in meetings like that? It shows the thinking process has ended somewhere, somehow. People are not thinking. Unfortunately, it happens many times, but we always look for people's opinions, we look for people's views, because that is how teams operate. It should not be a free rider. If you have ever worked with Americans, I don't know if you have any here. If you keep quiet twice in 2 meetings, they will think you have a problem. At least talk, say something, even if it's re-emphasizing what Jen and earlier on said, as if the others didn't hear it. You re-emphasize to show that you are around, show your presence. It's not a good habit, that's what I can say, but in some situations, it's good to express an opinion, discuss, give your views. Then it's also during team activities that you distribute leadership. There's somebody who's responsible for the cash, who's responsible for distributing tasks, someone who's responsible for other things. There's always something to share within teams. Then how do you form a team? What should it be made up of? It should be about people who believe in the mission of the team. I'm not saying everyone should be a yes person. It's very dangerous to have yes people in your team. It's always good to have somebody who's the devil's advocate, someone who thinks differently. If everyone keeps nodding, everything you say they keep agreeing with you, it means there's little thinking taking place. Because, I mean, you can't all agree. Somebody must have a different view. Because someone has a different view, it makes all of you think. Either you support your side, you support the other, or the whole team can be convinced by someone who has a different view, and it might be the better view. But if someone says, let's go to the west, you all go to the west. They say, no, I think we better, let's go to the east. Then you all say, hey, let's go to the east. Then they say, let's sit down, yeah, let's us all sit. Come on. What kind of team? It's time to disband the team. Because no thinking is taking place. It's dangerous. There should always be at least some difference in opinion. That means things move forward. You know how important friction is. It makes things move forward. When there's no friction, the tire slips, it remains in one place. There's a lot of skidding. But when there's some friction, something moves forward. Then there should be commitment to the team and its purpose, and then diversity of skills and personalities. You don't have to like each other in order to work together. It's not a must. But we should not personalize our differences. There are people who hate others naturally. Someone tells you, I hate that person naturally. The moment I saw him or her, I just developed dislike for him. But that person is the best technologist we have around here. Do you have to like him for him to do work for you? It's not necessary. But don't lose focus. You are here not to like people, to hate them. You are here to deliver a certain service. So just do what brought you. Those other differences, you can have it outside the gate. Then maybe you need counselors and what. But as long as you are within a team, make sure you do what brought you. Don't be like those people dress up in the morning to go and fight. It's very dangerous. It's we lose focus of why we're there. You build mountains out of molehills, small things. So it's very important to recognize the purpose of why the team is there. Okay. So what are the character traits of character and traits and teamwork? What do we need in order to have successful teams? One, we need people who are honest, people who have integrity, people who are selfless. Selfless. It sounds a very simple word, but in today's world we have so many people who talk of me, myself, and I. Everything referring to themselves. Me. I. They are always accusing other people because they are not caring about them. That's why one American president asked, that's not what you have done or what your country has done for you, but what have you done for your country? That's teamwork. There is what they say, one for all and all for one. I don't know how many of you watch movies, war films, especially the American propaganda films. How many of you have watched them? Chuck Norris, Schwarzenegger, those platoons. If you 5 people destroying a whole battalion of Vietnamese, or when you watch those propaganda films, one thing that happens is whenever a group of Americans are arrested, there's always one who survives, and that one comes back to rescue the others. Or if one has been numbed, all the other 5 will come back to rescue this one. Because that's their motto, all for one and one for all. So they always have to work together. You don't leave somebody behind, you struggle together. Selfless. You think about others before yourself. Then you must be dependable. You must have the enthusiasm to work. You should look forward to contributing. Your pleasure should come out as a result of your passion to do what you are supposed to do. Then responsibility. Everyone should be responsible. Cooperativeness. It's important that you cooperate. You might have your differences, but it's important that you cooperate. You should take initiative. I'll tell you something about initiative. It involves risks. A person who fears to take risks will find it difficult to take initiative. Because of the level of traffic jam, for example, we have on our roads, the number of drivers, I've learned some of these fanyas from taxi drivers. They say, if these vehicles are not moving, they say, there is this Maram road on this side. You just follow. You find yourself quite ahead somewhere where there is no traffic jam. You take the risk, you say, how did they know it? Then you get to discover that most roads in Kampala or within Uganda always have another alternative route. There's one down, there's another one somewhere up, and then there's a third one at some point. Bother to check, that is how Uganda's road networks are. So if you only know the main road, you will remain in the traffic jam. But if you take the initiative, you just guess, say, perhaps there's no traffic jam on the other side. You should always think of alternatives. How else can I solve this? And a person who has the initiative must be a person who's willing to take some measure of risk. Then patience. The people expect patience from us, but they are not patient with us. If you're a team, you always go to your field people. You agree, you meet at 8 to take off. Then one of you is not there. You are all willing to wait for this person to get ready. Maybe he or she delays you by 30 minutes. But the date is you who has the delay. No one wants to wait. Is that fair? We're not saying it's a good habit to keep delaying, but you wait for the others when they are late. But when it is you who's delayed, no one wants to wait. So that one kills team spirit. You should learn to be patient with each other, resourceful. Keep time. There's what we call African time nowadays, but that's just an excuse for doing things late. Be sensitive, be tolerant, and persevere. There are moments when there are many times there are no resources. What do? You sometimes volunteer in the hope that something will happen, something good will come. So it's very important to hope for the best, persevere, knowing what you're working at will one day bring you good results. Now, with the synergy of teams, we refer to the positive energies, the positive efforts you put towards making your things work. Everyone has a certain skill. Everyone is doing something to help the team work. It's positive energy. Within our organizations, we have people who are filled with negative energy. They never appreciate. They're always criticizing. They make everyone lose morale. They never say the positive things to people. And they don't know it has a negative effect on whoever is trying to put in positive effort. It's not a difficult thing to do. To say thank you, to say you appreciate, but a good number of us are talented at looking at the wrong things. When someone is accusing you of all these 10 bad things you do, being an HR, when I get such reports, I see someone is telling me about some other person. He has done A, B, C, D, this, a list of sins. I send them back and say, also give me a list of the good things they have done. Because I'm not going to make judgment on only one side of this person. I believe the person also has some good things he has done. And most times the good things are very few. It's because we are vindictive by nature. We always look at the bad things. We ignore the positives of people. So what we're saying, you must have the positive energy. Appreciate the good in people. Appreciate the efforts they put in. And if you identify a bad thing, help that person to be better. Do not use it against him or her. It is a learning point, and learning ends when we die. So within teams we have roles and responsibilities. We usually have a team leader. We have a team recorder. This is the one who takes minutes, who does this and that within the team. There's a quality advisor and a team member. So what are their roles? Usually the team leader is the person to contact, maybe even is the spokesperson of the organization. He keeps the official records. He's also a team member, and then he oversees the implementation of team recommendations. He will be the coach of the rest. Teams do not necessarily have to be like football. It can be a department, it can be a section, it can be a unit. It can be a group of people who have the same purpose. If you are going to undertake a very serious operation, I usually see it in movies. It's a team of medical personnel, anesthesia, surgeon, what? Everyone is contributing something to make sure they save a life. So, but there's usually a team leader, there's the head of whatever. So someone will be giving instructions and helping the rest. Team leaders are supposed to facilitate team development and continuous improvement. Once again, my experience in HR has shown that many times supervisors fail their responsibilities, and they even don't know that they are failing because they accuse themselves indirectly. You come to me and say somebody is on the verge of being promoted, then you say, don't promote Jennifer. Please do save this institution and don't promote Jennifer. I say, why? Jennifer is lazy, she comes late, she has poor interpersonal relations, all those negative things. You say, you keep her there for at least 2 years, let her improve in that area. You say, okay, fine, I've heard from you. Are you her supervisor? That yes. Has she been filling performance appraisal forms? That yeah. May I have a look at her performance? If you don't have those things in her performance appraisal, whatever you're telling me are rumors. Yeah, why didn't you tell her that, Jennifer, these are the issues you have? And you help the person to be a better person. Instead of waiting, when the person is about to move to the next level, that's when you discover he or she has sins. I never believe in such supervisors. I go ahead and promote what? Recommend Jennifer for promotion. Because if you do not have the guts to correct this person at that level, why do you have the guts to prevent the person moving to the next stage? Such, I consider it a rumor, or I consider it as malice. And secondly, you are accusing yourself of being a poor supervisor. you're accusing yourself. What did you do about it? Discover this person is ABCD and you did nothing? That means you are breeding a viper in your garden. What do they do with that? You kill a viper the moment you see it. A puffer, don't breed it in your garden. But if you breed it, well, maybe you are talented. But I don't encourage that kind of behavior. You should coach. In short, what you are saying, team leaders are supposed to help team members be better performers. You're supposed to help them. You're supposed to mentor. And then you're supposed to help them see into the future what's the benefit of respecting people, of understanding what the issues within the team are. Then you're supposed to empower them. When you empower, many times we don't know what empowerment is about. If you are, for example, a head of department, you leave somebody in charge of, maybe you're going on leave or you are on safari, then you leave somebody in charge. Please leave the person in charge. Don't again say, for this one, call me first. For in the end, the person is just a figurehead in the office, can't make any decision. If you have decided to empower, that's how you coach, that's how people learn. Let them make their mistakes. And don't distribute mistakes because you don't want to take responsibility. The buck stops somewhere. You know that saying, the buck stops here. You've heard of it? If, for example, you drink mineral water and you find it very cold, you can thank the president for that. Are you aware? You drink soda and it's very good, you can thank the president for the taste of the soda. You don't get the connection. Let me tell you, there was a saying in the United States, for example, if the roads are badly constructed, there are so many potholes, maybe the road was constructed a few months ago and immediately there are potholes. Who's responsible for that? You will blame the engineer, not so? And then you'll also blame the Ministry of Works, maybe. And then the Ministry of Works, you'll blame the overseers, the ones who supervise. Then you'll go back and say, who made these people supervisors? What are their qualifications? You will say, it is maybe the permanent secretary. Then the permanent secretary will say, for me, I followed the instructions from what the minister said. You look at the minister, it is you who suggested we bring that company. You see the blame game going? And then finally say, who appointed this minister? Where does it end up? The president's. The buck stops here. There's somewhere the blame game must stop. The same applies to when good things happen. This soda you're drinking is because the economy was liberalized, and then there's electricity, and then there was this and what. So everything has been possible. The peace ushered in, and you're drinking the soda. You thank the president. The buck stops somewhere in terms of the blame game. So if you are a supervisor, the buck must stop somewhere. The blame game. What we usually don't like is to accept fault. If you don't make mistakes, heaven is missing an angel. Yeah. If you accept you make mistakes, you are being human. That's why we say sorry. That's why the word sorry exists. That's why there's room for learning. Organizations that are perfect never move. They stay stagnant. Organizations that accept mistakes, learn from their mistakes and move to the next stage. What do we do about research and development here? How strong is it? You are scientists. How strong is our component of research and development? How is it contributing to the development of this country? In research and development, you are allowed to make mistakes, not so? Because that's where you do experiments, you try out this, you try out that, you try different methods. But in some institutions where every method has been, they say this is where it ends, this is where it begins, this is where it ends. There's no room for making mistakes, and that's wrong. You remain in the old thinking for so long. By the time you have the institutional memory changes, the world has left you behind. But team members are supposed to be proactive, not have to be reactive. You have to be proactive. So team recorder, this one's the one who takes the minutes. Then team quality advisor focuses on team processes and how decisions are made. Helps to break down. That's why, for example, head of department, a dean doesn't work alone. He needs the other people within the organization to help run the institution. You can't run everything, otherwise you will break down. You can't make every decision wait for you. Maybe you can categorize the level of decisions. This and that. If you break down tasks, so and so will be responsible for maybe the leave roster. This one will be responsible for timetables. So and so will be responsible for A, B, C, D. You can't say everything should be meant for you. The day you're not there, nothing moves. That's not teamwork. Even during your absence, things are supposed to move. If you build a good team, you build a legacy. You train other people to be as good as you, or even better. You shouldn't be indispensable. Unfortunately, many of us think we are indispensable. If I'm not there, that place will collapse. Who tells you? Are you the one who started it? Are you the only one with that idea? It might delay, but it will not collapse. So like we think when we die, our children will die with us. But do they die? They might suffer, they might have problems, but they still grow up. Maybe not the way you want it, but they still survive. So why should, the moment an institution has people, or a team has people who are indispensable, it's time to disband that team. And to create another one. You can't afford to have indispensable. Everyone is indispensable. That's why we need different skills. So you must be thinking of leaving behind a legacy. These are some team activities. Gatekeeping, that is who comes in, who gets out within the team. How do you allow them in? Encouraging, harmonizing your ideas. Then one other thing is reducing tension. Knowing that is making you fit within the culture of the team, and then managing yourselves. Four-step approach in team building. You assess what is it that you want, you plan, you execute, and evaluate. When you're assessing, you look for strengths in team members. You identify everyone has a strength and a weakness. But because we are more interested in your strength, we might ignore your weaknesses. Our school system, our education system does not train us very well to relate to the people who are eccentric. I believe you have come across eccentric people. They are different. I mean, you try to relate to them, but it's not very easy to relate to them. Either they are antisocial, but they are good in some area. They have certain things about them that is different from the rest. Then we give them names. They are Mawaya, they are what, they are straight, but they are just, that's how they are. They are eccentric. They are not exactly like everybody else, but they have something. They are contributing to society. So how do you deal with such people? Are you going to throw them out because they are different? I used to have a lecturer who used to wear a tie on his t-shirts. Yeah. But he was a very good lecturer. He knew, I mean, that was him. If that's how he enjoys wearing his clothes, I mean, what's your problem? What we were interested in was the matter was pouring out. And there are people who are different. But now, do you know how to build on their strengths and concentrate less on the differences, on the weaknesses? Somebody comes there with a skill, maybe on DNA, something, and he doesn't speak English very well. Will you concentrate on his poor grammar and punctuation, or you just concentrate on the point he's trying to put across? That's what we're saying. Concentrate on the good that is in people, not on their weaknesses. Execution, the effectiveness of a team is measured based on how well weaknesses identified in the needs assessment were strengthened. Every other time you identify people with weaknesses, find a way of handling it. Concentrate on their positives, because there's no perfect person. We all have our weaknesses. Others will say, but yours is more than mine. Yes, it might be. So, but yours is worse. You have become the judge. We all have our weaknesses, but let's concentrate on the positive and encourage the other person, if we have the skill to do it, to be a better person. So there are also behaviors which we are supposed to, behaviors which are disruptive, being aggressive, bragging, competing. Then there are those who withdraw everything you ask them and say, I don't know. You want to say this one, you ask this one, so they don't disturb me. I mean, how do you become a team member when you don't want to contribute anything? Where are you there? When you have people who have withdrawn, it's either time to include them in or to look for another team member. Or to find, if the person is crucial within the team, find a way of making this person participate. There are people who have their issues, but you have to help them. And then there are people who want to take all the credit. I'm the one who did it. If it was not for me, this one wouldn't have happened. If it was not like this, every other time it is them. Very egocentric, egoistic. Their egos are so huge, they can fill this room. So they must be recognized at every other point. Such behavior kills team spirit. Personality conflicts. There are people who have personalities that disrupt group work. They will keep the key to a certain drawer or a certain cupboard and make you dance for it as if they are not part of the what? The team. You move away with it and say, no, what do you want there? First do this, first do that. Come on, we are all doing something for the institution. But the way the person is behaving, it's like they want to be begged, they want to be shown they're important. They forget, they lose the focus of why they are there. Then you must have clear tasks, otherwise if it's ambiguous, it is difficult to know where you're going. That's where this saying comes. A person who doesn't know where he's going, how do you end that proverb? What happens? A person who does not know where he's going never gets lost. Or any road can lead him there. But if you have a focus, you are going to Bombo and you find yourself in Mukono, you are able to stop and ask, how far is Bombo from here? And then someone will say, no, you go back to where you started and use the other route. Because you will now have a sense of direction. You got lost, but now you are able to tell that you are lost. But a person who never asks for direction, he continues beyond Mukono. He says, we're about to reach Bombo. He finds himself in Mbale, then he's in Sudan. He's going to Bombo. Then until they think you have entered another country. Say Bombo. Because if you don't have a sense of direction, it's difficult to know where you are, how you're supposed to be, where you want to be. So always have a focus. Always have a focus. And then issues of free riding, we've already talked about that. Then poor readiness to work. High performance teams are usually very clear on their goals. They are task driven, result oriented. They have committed members. They have external support sometimes. They are principled, and they have democratic leadership. Democratic leadership doesn't mean every decision has to be decided by every other person. There are certain crucial decisions you make. You can't call to ask. One reason they say in the motor vehicle industry, they have not used Microsoft's software in vehicles. Why? Because if you are going to apply brakes doing it, are you sure you want to apply brakes? Microsoft always asks, are you sure you want to delete this? Are you sure? Do you want to save? Now, when you are driving, will you ask, are you sure you want to apply brakes before you apply? At that time, there's no time for asking questions. You'll just apply the brakes. So if you're a leader, if you're a team leader, sometimes you don't ask, are you sure we should discuss this? There are moments when you have to make those split decisions because they're about life and death. Yeah. So it's not all the time that you come across such moments, but there are moments you have to, but you have to also explain to your members, team members, why that decision has to be made. If it needs rescinding, maybe. But one thing is clear, any team leader must be decisive. Make a decision. Even if it's the wrong one, it's a reference point. Don't dilly-dally. I'm still thinking, I'm still consulting, but what? And in the end, you become late because you are still consulting. Then, why do we have reasons for conflicts within teams? One is poor communication and defined structures. It's not clear who does what, and sometimes we have our own personal problems. How do you resolve those conflicts? You must be willing to talk, willing to communicate, willing to address the conflict. Do not say, don't talk about that one yet. That is for next time. Every other time an issue comes, they say, I'm tired of hearing that. Now, can we go to the next point? Now, when you keep discussing, like every other time you avoid discussing issues, keep them under the carpet, one day those things will stink. And they will stink for everybody. It will come back to you. Do not, what topic is there under the sun that can't be discussed? They might make you uncomfortable just for a few minutes, but discuss them. You might not be able to solve them in one sitting, not even in the second. You might solve them in the 50th meeting, but solve it. Do not fear to solve problems. Do not hide things under the carpet. You think things will, you can wish them away. It's difficult to wish away problems. And remember, you are there because you have the ability to solve problems. So always resolve conflicts. That's what we are saying. Acknowledge that it exists, gain common ground, and develop an action plan. Always find a way. There are some problems we learn to live with. There are other issues which are actually not problems, especially the men who are here. When you start developing a runway on your head, what do? When the bald head is actually coming, you'll try to wear hats, wear what, even what. But the runway is developed. What do? Is it a problem? You learn to live with it. Yeah. If somehow you were born and your nails are facing the other way, what do? Do you cut off your foot? You learn to accept that these are the best nails God ever gave you. You accept them the way they are. So there are certain things we think they are problems when they are actually not problems. There are certain things we learn to live with. Then there are those ones that need to be solved, either immediately, either in the medium term or in the long term. So we should know what problem to solve at what time. Then when we talk about rewards, we are talking about rewards which do not necessarily mean money. Reward behaviors that are expected within the institution, things like recognizing, having the employee of the month or of the week or of the year. You can call a meeting to recognize somebody. You can give a certificate. You can give a token of appreciation. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. But as long as you recognize effort, you recognize commitment, you recognize honesty, you have to have a criteria. You have to have the criteria on how to recognize people's efforts. Because one of the greatest things human beings want, it's not at the workplace, it's not money. Money comes in the list of things. Money is around number 6. Yeah. Come, I'll give you the list. It has been done several. Money comes number 6. What people want is appreciation. Then money is important. But even then, there are people who work. I have a friend who was working in a place where he was being paid 12 million per month. But for that 12 million, he was not supposed to receive visitors at his place, not even his private. He was not to receive email. Lunch break was it was 15 minutes. He was supposed to be in the office by 7. I mean, there are so many rules. And each time he was in his computer, there would pop up a message. You're not supposed to be doing this. There's some big brother was watching from somewhere. He was not you even got a warning for answering an email during the company time. After 6 months, he said he was throwing in the towel. Then friends told him, hang in there, where will you get 12 million? He said, my friend, even if I'm going to run mad because of the conditions in that place, not because of 12 million. After 7 months, he quit. He said, let me get peace of mind. It's not always money. There are other things that help. It will be money before you're in that situation. But afterwards, you discover other things also count. Your welfare as a being, as a human being. The recognition that you are a person with feelings, with needs and desires other than money. So that's something to do with rewards. It motivates, yes. Then you should always reward good performance. These are all strategies on how you can reward without necessarily giving money. Strong commitment, high product, strong commitments, these are what things. So, inputs for team building, you need resources, you need the technology, you need the right atmosphere, you need clarity for your team, and then also the size. What are the numbers, right? If the numbers are so big, it's difficult to have that level of cohesion because you are bringing in very many different personalities. So certain numbers are also not advisable. And then make people participate. Then the rest are level of culture of good team building, high level of interdependence. Everyone has a skill in a particular area, so you all depend on each other. Good interpersonal skills. It's not very easy to have everyone with the ability to relate with people. We are all come from very many different backgrounds. Some of us are very eccentric, some of us are the only sons, the only daughters, the last born. We are brought up very differently, you know. Firstborns are always gained more. They are made more responsible. Lastborns are usually spoiled because they are the last one. I don't know whether it happens like that, but in most cases, so people grow up, they want to be treated the way their mothers or fathers treated them, even at the workplaces. They think they are in their homes, they forget the circumstances have changed. Others still continue talking about their fathers, their mothers after being mature people. They forget to break off that connection and being independent. Sometimes it makes it difficult to realize that you are a mature person. This is now your decision. You don't have to call money to find out, should I accept this post? You must have some level of independence. Well, we are saying people have different characters. And then team and individuals should be prepared to take risks. Teamwork is now to examine team and all those nice things that happen within teams, as we have already said. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the presentation.